Grab a trick-or-treat plastic pumpkin from the store. Spray paint the entire outside of the pumpkin using gold spray paint. Carve and cut out the pumpkin mouth and leave everything but one tooth. Cut a roll of paper towels to fit inside the pumpkin. Then insert the cut roll of paper towel inside of the pumpkin. Now you have a stylish decorated pumpkin paper towel holder to display on your kitchen counter.
For today's project, we're going to start with one of these pumpkin pails. Oops, this one though has a hole in it. We're going to need to tape that off because we need this thing to hold concrete. So put a couple layers on, take that smile, let's get to work. First thing we're going to do is take a bottle that can fit inside the bucket. Any size will do, but it's got to be able to fit inside there because we need to create a cavity. Also, I'm going to put a little bit of a dowel on the bottom with some hot glue just as a spacer and as a drainage point. We're going to set that on there. Now we're going to go outside, and as you can see, I am setting up this concrete outside. It does create a lot of dust. First thing you want to do is pour some water in the bucket before you pour the concrete, then some concrete. I am using gloves because this concrete can really dry out your hands. But once you pour it, make sure you add a little bit more water. We're going for kind of a soupy mix on this concrete. Once you get it stirred up and it's nice and thin, go ahead and put it in the bucket. But I need you all to do me a favor. Next time I pour this concrete, will you guys remind me to put down some cardboard? It does get a little messy on the driveway. What we're going to do though is keep filling this up. And yeah, that's Pam cooking spray. We're going to put that on the bottle and the dowel because it's going to be easier to remove once you put that slippery spray on there. Once we get it filled up, go ahead and stick that right in there, that bottle. But it wants to float. So once we fill up the sides, I notice that it wants to just keep popping up. Tap the sides though. We want to get any air bubbles out that we can. I put a little spacer block inside on top of the handle there, slip it right in, and that way it'll hold it down while the concrete cures. Once we get it set up and in place, let it dry overnight. But the next day, it's going to be ready to go. And here it is in all its glory. Take that block out, but we need to remove the concrete from the pail. Get you a sharp knife, and we're going to go right along behind the handle, down one of the creases. Now be very careful. Keep all your digits and everything out of the way, and just make a couple of passes and cut. Don't cut all the way through at the bottom though, because you can actually reuse this pail by taping up the sides. Once you get it, start pulling it apart. Tip it over if you need to because it's a little heavy. That thing weighs about 15 pounds. And there it is. But we got to get rid of that bottle also. Remember we put that Pam cooking spray? It'll just come right out, but the dowel got stuck in there. So I'm going to grab a pair of pliers and just pull that right out. Now, if you don't have a drainage hole on the second one that I did, just use a drill. You can go ahead and just drill through. That concrete's still soft, and that'll make a great drainage hole. Now it's time to paint. Yep, you got it right. I went with the rustic orange because we want to make this pumpkin look as real as possible. Then I want to paint the eyes. I want those to stand out a little bit. Just a little bit of acrylic black paint will do the work. Again, this will take just a couple of coats. Once that paint dries, we need to put a protective finish on it. This thing's going to sit out in the fall, in the winter. It's going to need something to protect it from all the rain and all the mist and fog. And then it's time to plant. Any little type of plant will do. Remember, it's got a drainage hole. And there it is. Looking great. Add a little bit of water and keep it good. And it's going to greet all those little trick-and-treaters as you come up to the front door.
For this project, you're going to need a witch hat, a pumpkin pail, a broom handle, a pool noodle, and some gaffer's tape. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the handle hook from the top so it's empty. Next, I'm going to place it into the grass, and I'm going to use my rubber mallet to pound it down into the ground. I've got a pool noodle, which I'm going to remove the sticker from. Next, I've got some gaffer's tape, and I'm going to start by sticking it to the noodle, and then I'm just going to keep winding it around the noodle, spiraling it down kind of like a candy cane. And you could easily use duct tape for this if you'd rather. Now that I've got my pool noodle ready, I'm just going to slide it on to the broom handle like so. Next, I'm going to take my cool glue gun and load up a bunch of hot glue onto. It's important to use a cool glue gun so that it doesn't melt your pool noodle. Next, I'm going to take a pumpkin pail and I'm going to center it up and place it onto the glue. Next, I've got some orange Halloween lights. I'm gonna place some of them in the top of the Halloween pail. And next, I'm going to take and wind these lights around the pool noodle to the ground. Right underneath here, I'm gonna place a little dab of hot glue, and I've got a little bow to add underneath. Now you could make your own bow if you'd prefer, but I just wanted to give my pumpkin a little extra something. I'm gonna add a little hot glue to the top. And then lastly, I'm going to take this witch hat and place it onto the pumpkin pail. And I hope this inspires you to create a light up pole for Halloween at your home. To start this project, you are going to need a tomato cage. So I have the tomato cage upside down with the part that you normally stick into the ground facing up. And then I have a standard plastic pumpkin pail, and I'm gonna go ahead and tip it upside down and slide it over all three of those metal parts. What I've got now is just a regular yard size garbage bag. I'm gonna open it up, slide it over the top, and then I want to make the top so it's centered. Okay, next I've just cut a piece of twine, but you could use a strip of black fabric. You could use, I'll talk about some other options. You could use ribbon as well if you wanted it to be all black. But I'm just gonna take this piece of twine and I'm going to go around. I wanna aim for the pumpkin bucket. I'm just gonna go ahead and tie this in here. What you're doing is you're giving your witch a waist. And you can decide, if you want it to be a bow or not. And then these are gonna be her arms. So you need them to fluff out a little bit so that she's got some arms. So we've got the body kind of done now, so we're gonna talk about the head. And what I'm gonna use is another pumpkin bucket for the head. Now you could leave it forward facing if you want this face, or you could turn it around and draw another face. I'm going to go ahead and leave it mysterious and blank. And what we're gonna do next is glue this to the top. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add a little hot glue. And then we're gonna add the pumpkin on top. Now I want my pumpkin to light up at night, her face. I want it to sparkle. So I got one of these sparkly little lights. I'm gonna go ahead and put that inside her head. Now next, of course, she needs a witch hat. So I'm gonna go ahead and tip it upside down. And I've got these old bags, but you could use fiber fill or whatever you want, and I'm just gonna go ahead and stick them inside. So basically they're like garbage bags or grocery store bags. Then I also just wanna make it so that it sticks up and it has a nice little point to the top of it. And again, I'm trying to think of things that if it's outside and it does get wet because it rains or snows, it's not a big deal. And then I'm gonna go ahead and place this right on top of her head. Now, if you were not gonna put the lights in, you would just hot glue the hat into place. But again, I want to get in and out of mine so that I can turn that light on in the evenings. Okay, so the basic witch is done. So now you can embellish it however you want to. So if you want to add some tulle to her, you can. Again, it really just depends upon where you're gonna be putting her. I think this belt is a little too small, so I'm gonna be contemplating either a black belt for her or maybe a bigger rope belt. You can also cut some slits or some zigzags into her sleeves. Same thing on the bottom. You can take and just make a zigzag pattern so she's maybe a more weathered witch, or maybe she's a good witch and needs some more sparkle or something to her. So personalize your witches. Now I'm gonna be making 3 of them, and we are gonna connect their hands together. So I'll be talking about that next, and I'll be whipping 2 more of these together really fast. Okay, so I've got 2 of them made, the third one's over there. And I'm going to use 1 more garbage bag to make their hands hold together. So I've cut the garbage bag into a long strip. I'm gonna take it in the center. I'm gonna go ahead and make a knot in the center. This is going to be where their hands join together. So I'm gonna aim to put the knot in the middle, and you can make these as long or as short as you want, depending on how far apart you want your witches. And then I'm gonna take this little corner here, this edge of this, I'm gonna add a little bit of hot glue to it. I'm going to stick one end of her arm to that. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. I'm going to hot glue this piece together. Now, if it's a little easier, you can go ahead and make a little knot on the end so you've got a little something easier to glue. Kind of depends upon where you're displaying them again. But then you just hot glue that together, and now they have arms joining and you can spread them apart. Here are all 3 witches all ready to go outside. Here they are all on display, and I'm so excited with how they turned out.
head to Dollar Tree and pick up 2 paper towel holders, guide the centerpiece of the towel holder through the floral foam, begin adding florals to the base, stack the second paper towel holder directly on top and add more florals to it to cover the foam entirely. Take a strand of gems and attach to the top of the stacked paper towel holders. Attach it to the top of the paper towel holder base. There you have it, a cheap way to create your own easy holiday decoration for your home.
First, we're going to start with this 9-foot flocked garland. We're going to use some of this silver bay leaf and just work them right into the garland. Now we're going to work in some shatterproof ornaments, and we can start hot gluing these in place too. We'll just do one loop with a set of tails, and I'm just going to take that little pipe cleaner and wrap it around, and it just adds a nice little touch of ribbon. And look at how pretty this looks.
Take any glass vase or jar container that you have and layer the bottom with a couple of inches of greenery. Angle the ends of the greenery toward the outside of the glass. Next, grab your box of plastic wrap and start crumpling it into a bunch. But I did try to shape it into a sort of level disc. The third layer consists of fresh cranberries. Take a pitcher of water and pour over the top of all the layers. You can add a tea light to the top of the layers. This is a perfect holiday display centerpiece for anywhere in your home.
And for this, we're going to use a hula hoop, but I do want some larger bricks to hold my hoop in place. Figure out the placement of our trees. I usually like to start with my greenery first. Some moss on top of your green floral foam. But I'm going to be using cream, solo wood flowers in various different styles. Add this little touch of red. Oh my gosh, how pretty did this turn out?
Let's gather some oranges out of the refrigerator. We're first going to cut some short pieces of rosemary. Now we're going to place longer pieces of rosemary all around the bottom part of the tree. It's time to add our little cuties. And I'm putting the pointy end into the tree. Place about 12 to 15 little cuties inside the vase. I then am going to fill the vase with water. I always start with a base of greenery. Lastly, we're going to add our flowers. For our last project, I took oranges and dried them in a dehydrator. I'm just going to use a hot glue gun, glue the cinnamon stick to the middle of the dried grapefruit slice, add a piece of rosemary. I then take a wire, put it through the rind of the citrus, and twist it. Now it's time to attach these to the wreath. And there you have 3 great projects you can create out of fresh citrus.
Run to the dollar store and grab one of these hanging planters or hanging terrarium. Now you're going to go and fill your terrarium with some sand. Now let's go and place the people along with also some of the miniatures. But I think this arrangement is really cute and I do want a wintry look to it. Take some of these white stones that you can also go and purchase at the dollar store. Then I am going to take some of the fake snow and make it look like it's almost snowing there. And now I'm going to go and mix up some Elmer's glue, along with also a very small amount of watered down dish soap. To dye this, I'm going to use a little bit of mica powder. Then I'm going to go and mix this up, go and put some air back into the mixture, use a spoon to put a small amount over some of the white rocks, and then use my heat gun on a very low setting to go and dry this slightly so I can keep some of those bubbles in there. I'm going to go and add a couple of these small little tiny white rocks to here, and after it's dry, your diorama can look like this.
You want to open the tea light package and remove your tea lights. Pull gently on the wick. Place as many tea lights as you think you need in the saucepan and bring the water to a boil. Pour enough wax on the parchment paper to surround your cookie cutter and then set your cookie cutter on the wax and press down. Fill in the cookie cutters almost to the very top. Now the wicks on the Dollar Tree tea lights are really short, so I waited to add them to the top layer of the wax. I added the faux snow to the melted wax and poured that onto the very top layer. You can pop off the excess wax, place my cookie cutters on a Pyrex pie plate. I took a length of garland and made it into a wreath shape and set it inside the tray. What a pretty little display.
Let me show you how I turned a couple glass bowls into these Pottery Barn dupes. Put 1 coat of spray paint and primer on the bowls. With the Rub and Buff, I was able to put on 1 layer and achieve the aged look that I wanted. Turn it over and then paint the bottom the other side of your bowls. I cut the ring off the pacifier and snapped a small piece of the shower curtain ring off and glued them. Here I used wax cubes, melted them down, and then you pour that into the bowl. For your wicks, you can get a kit off of Amazon and use the popsicle sticks with the hole to help make sure that your wicks stand up straight. And there you have it. Light and enjoy. We're going to start with a vase from Dollar Tree. Go ahead and cover this entire thing with this frosted glass spray paint. We are going to be using a pail and we are going to be hot gluing this on top. So now we're going to start with some ribbon. Now you want to make sure that you get the hot glue all the way around and then slowly secure the ribbon. And I've come down to using 2 of these leaves, and then I'm probably going to be using some of the decorative berries. And once I've poured the whole bag of the rocks into the vase, detach the solar light top from the base, and we are going to be placing this in the center of the vase. It's a beautiful, cute, decorative solar lantern that I'm really excited is living out on my screened-in porch now.
I trimmed and sewed 2 different thrifted flat sheets together and left about a 2 to 3 foot opening at the bottom. I stuffed a folded piece of foam inside and then folded it over a headboard. I used hot glue to secure some ties to either side and tied both ends in cute bows.
I ran down to the hardware store and grabbed several pieces of brick molding. My first step was to figure out my spacing. I secured these in place using just painter's tape for now so that I could step back and make sure that they looked the way I wanted them to. And then I secured the brick molding using a nail gun. I used caulking and ran it down the side of the brick molding. This way, everything would look nice and finished. Once that was dry, I was able to add my paint. I applied several coats of white paint so that everything would look like it was one continuous piece. I went ahead and moved the furniture back into the room and got to work on decorating.
I'm gonna go right down the center and just cut them in half so that I have that flat edge to go flush against the board.
Space the noodles out with a little bit of spacing in between, and then attach them also with the staple gun for some added stability. I worked in sections of about 4 at a time, sprayed a little bit of spray adhesive on, and then just kind of used my hands to firmly work the leather into the channels. I trimmed the edge at the corner and then just tucked it over and secured it tightly with a little bit of spray adhesive and then also more of the staples. Once that corner was secure, I just worked my way down.
I hit the hardware store and picked up some 2x2s and some 3/4 inch plywood. I measured and cut the 2x2s to the height of the headboard that I ultimately wanted to have. Once my frame was built, I added my plywood pieces on top. I screwed these pieces of wood into place. My next step was to cover it the way I wanted it to look. My solution was actually to purchase a 5x7 jute rug online. The price of this rug was only $62. Placed the rug around it and started to staple it into place.
I am going to show you how to make 3 high-end looking headboards using supplies from Dollar Tree. You're going to start by flipping it over so the white side is facing down. On the back, I am using 2 paint sticks and I'm going to hot glue them over the creases. I grabbed a really lightweight towel. So I've ironed out all the creases, laying it flat on my table, and I'm going to put the piece of cardboard over the top and then just fold it around the sides and hot glue it in place. This next headboard uses peel and stick wallpaper tiles from Dollar Tree. And I laid them all out again on that trifold board, made sure that the patterns matched up. To finish off the edges, I am just folding that wallpaper over. Dollar Tree has these rolls of shelf liner. So starting with the trifold board as a base, I am just going to unroll onto the cardboard. I want to line up all these flowers so it looks like one continuous piece. For the back of this one, I am going to fold the remaining adhesive over the back so the edges look nice and finished.
I headed down to the hardware store and picked up some 1x2s. I measured my wall and cut the wood down to size. I stained the wood. I made sure the first piece was plumb, and then I used a nail gun to attach it to the wall. Once I had the first piece in place, I used another piece as a spacer and then secured the next one. I secured all of my vertical boards in place. I secured the pieces on the ceiling. I used LED strip lights with a remote control. I removed the backing and stuck them along the wall and also up onto the ceiling pieces. Turning it on for the first time was exciting.
Pick up 6 clear plastic punch bowls from Dollar Tree. Cut a round hole in the bottom of each punch bowl and then glue the bowls together top to top with hot glue. Take the 6 attached bowls and then glue the bases of the bowls together so that you have 3 bowl balls stacked vertically. Take an LED fairy light strand, wrap the string lights around a wood dowel and thread them through the center holes. Distribute the fairy lights into each bowl. Place the bowl stack on top of a planter of choice. Hot glue the bow, pine cones, and Christmas ornaments to the top of the bowls. Plug it in, and there you have it, a cheap way to create your own easy Christmas decorations for your home.
I want to wedge this in really, really tight. I want to trim it to just beneath. I'm going to push this down into the styrofoam. So I have my large styrofoam ball here. And I'm going to push this one all the way down to the bottom. What I'm going to use now is S-pins. We'll start with this top one up here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take those greening pins and I'm going to secure this. I'm going to unwrap this and I am going to start with this down in the bottom of my pot. I'm going to go ahead and I've got all kinds of evergreen and Christmas picks and just add those in. And I'm going to fluff it and just add it. And the next thing we're going to do is add our holly just like we did below. I'm going to finish adding all of these berries. I'm just going to add some brown paint to it. And here is our topiary all decked out with a matching wreath by the front door, ready for the holidays.
I am going to grab a couple of these pool noodles.
I'm going to take some craft paper and I'm going to cut it into strips. Take them and wrinkle them up. Take a pool noodle and I'm going to cut these into some different lengths. And then I'm going to take some Mod Podge. I'm going to take these strips of paper and then just cut. Paint some of the Mod Podge right onto the end of my pool noodle and then just wrap that paper, and we do want to overlap them. And now when the whole thing is finished, you can go and put an entire coat of Mod Podge over the entire thing. I'm just going to paint it with white acrylic paint. And I put 2 coats of paint on them. I need to cover this end. So I'm going to go ahead with my low temp glue, put that on the end. I'm just going to go ahead and paint the ends of this. And then I'm going to start to add some interesting texture to the logs with paint. This is a plastic pot and I have filled it with some styrofoam and I'm just going to wrap this around. So I've gotten several more variety of evergreen picks. You can find what you like. And now it's time to add our birch logs. I can stick a dowel rod right up in there and I can just stick these right down in the styrofoam. Look how beautiful this turned out. It adds so much to my fireplace. The first thing I'm going to do is turn one of my bowls upside down. Obviously, we're going to take our tag off and then I'm going to take my glue gun, just going to gently push with a hot, high temp old glue gun, and it's going to melt a hole right through our bowl. So what I'm going to do is I am going to make a circle of these holes. When you have your holes all in a circle, you just want to try and melt that part right between them so that it'll pop out a big circle for you. And there we have it. Enough was melted. And again, be careful that you don't crack your bowl. And you've got a good sized hole. And I'm just going to sand off those rough edges. So I have finished with all of my bowls. That's 5 of this one and 4 of this one. I'm going to start with one of these bowls first. So what I'm going to do is I am going to feed these through the hole, but our battery pack is going to go under here, and I'm going to want a couple of lights down inside the base, and then I'm going to bundle this back up again. Now I have my second bunch. Same thing, the battery pack is going to go under here, and I'm going to just put these right through the same hole. And now we're going to add one of our large bowls, like so. Now I have this bowl on top of this one. I'm just going to add a bead of the adhesive right around the top here, and then we're just going to secure that bowl right to the bottom bowl. When you're confident that your adhesive is dry and that these are glued together well, so you can pick one up, then we're going to take our second large bowl and we're going to do the same thing. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my second bunch. And I'm going to put a bead of it around here so that I can secure these two bowls to one another. To get my little lights to stay, what I'm going to do is I have this clear waterproof floral tape, and I'm going to tape some of those lights. So I have 2 lights from each of my strands, and I'm just going to put that waterproof clear tape right across there to keep those right up in the top. But I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to make sure that that is centered, and we have a little top on our beautiful lighted tower. I'm going to take this plastic tray and put it beneath my tower of lights. Before I left the Dollar Tree, I picked up a couple of these glitter drapes, they call it, but it's the cotton with some glitter on it. I'm just going to open this up. I'm going to cut some of this and put it down around the bottom. And look how pretty that is and how it glows at night. And make some of these for yourself for Christmas this year.
So for the base of this project, I'm using an apple basket. And in the bottom of this, we're just going to put some rocks. Now inside the basket, I'm just going to take a flower pot. Now we're going to place the tomato cage. I'm just going to use a couple of zip ties to attach the handles of the apple basket to the side of the tomato cage. We're going to pull the top up here together, so actually the bottom of the tomato cage, and use a little floral wire to twist around there and hold it together. Starting at the bottom, we're going to use just sections of inexpensive garland like this to wrap our topiary. Now we'll come back and kind of fluff all these pieces up to make it look like a nice full topiary. So we're just gonna take a set of white lights and string these around the tree. So I'm going to start with some pieces of this wired silver ribbon. We're gonna take some floral picks and we're just gonna stick these in around the tree. Can also use some other greenery like this, kind of a frosted look, and some pine cones.
I hope you are inspired to go create your own DIY topiary.
First, grab a plastic pot and a tomato cage. Cut down the tomato cage to size. Next, weigh down the pot with a large rock, brick, or other filler. Then, attach the tomato cage. After that, grab a pipe cleaner and cut it in half. Pinch together the top of the tomato cage and twist around to create a point. Next, add some LED lights. You'll want to make sure they're LED to avoid a fire hazard. After that, grab some green Deco mesh. Pinch it together and attach with pipe cleaners. After that, grab a red bow and thread pipe cleaners through it to tie to the top of the tree. Next, grab some ornament hooks and add them to the bulbs, twisting them into the Deco mesh. These little trees are the perfect way to brighten up your front porch or a dark corner of your home that needs a little holiday cheer. After Christmas, remove the green Deco mesh for a winter tree. Removing the Deco mesh and bulbs is easy since the bulbs are twisted into the mesh. It comes off in one piece. All you have to do is twist off the pipe cleaners. Next, reattach the top of the cage using a white pipe cleaner. After that, twist on white Deco mesh just like we did with the green. Add a white bow and some snowflakes for a winter tree that will last all season.
I picked up some brown paper bags for these styrofoam balls in various sizes. And the first thing we're gonna need to do is cut. We're gonna start with some Mod Podge. And we do wanna add a lot of this Mod Podge to keep this bag in place. You can just take the rest of the bag and you can just kind of twist it around. So I have 3 beautiful yellow tulips. So to start, we're gonna cut our stem. So while the Mod Podge is still wet, I'm just gonna kind of unravel the bulb a little bit. Take the end of our tulip, poke it right into the styrofoam, and then just take that brown paper bag and kind of squish it around. So we're gonna take some of those scrap stems that we got from the tulips, and we only need a little length. So we're gonna insert into the styrofoam ball, just take our stems and poke them right in.
So I'm gonna just start and wrap this over and under the front edge. I'm going to take my wisteria and I'm going to lay it here the way I want, and then I'm just going to take zip ties. Those will hold securely even in the wind. I'm just going to tuck that down out of the way for right now. Now these are more like a wisteria bush, and I'm going to spread this out a little, and I'm just going to add this one right to the middle in the front right here. And I'm just going to continue to add these right along the front like so. I bought some beautiful silk peony bushes and I'm going to cut them apart, spread these out, and I'm going to tuck these right in for some beautiful color.
I grabbed a ladle from my kitchen and a dollar store plastic pot. We're going to start by hot gluing our ladle directly to the container. Now that the glue is hardened, we're going to come back in with even more hot glue on the base of our ladle. And the bottom part is actually a cake stand that I got on clearance. So now we're going to just hold this here for a minute while it hardens up. And what we're going to do is snip off each flower stem individually. So after dipping them in your glue skillet, apply a generous amount of hot glue, and then what you can start doing is gluing it right to the handle of your ladle. Just continue working in even more beautiful flowers.
Take 2 styrofoam blocks and glue them together using a cool melt glue gun. Take that wire hanger and bend it. Take 2 pipe cleaners and twist the ends together. Do this as well with another set of 2 pipe cleaners. Position the wire hanger hook on top of the styrofoam block and secure it by wrapping the pipe cleaners up and around the hook. Twist the ends securely and tuck them in. Start to stick the faux stems into the top and sides of the styrofoam block. Now take some faux flowers, continue to fill in the empty spaces with other flowers, and hang your new flower arrangement.
Grab 2 paper towel holders and some faux flowers from the Dollar Tree. Press a foam block down into one of the paper towel holders. Flip the other paper towel holder over and press it into the foam block again. Attach the 2 paper towel holders with some floral wire or some zip ties. Cut the large stems from the faux flowers and start placing the flowers all over the foam block. Grab another foam block and repeat this process. Finish this easy centerpiece by hanging some faux crystals for some extra glam. Hot glue that foam block on top of the paper towel holder.
Alex actually picked this up for me from Target for $5. So we're gonna cut this about an inch or so. So I essentially just painted a little bit of glue on top of the foam. Then we can come back to our container and just place it on like that. And we're gonna start with this as a nice base. Up next, we have a few dollar store flowers. So we'll start with one color at a time. So we're gonna start with some bricks of dry floral foam. This is a glue skillet. And then we'll take those 2 bricks and we're going to stick them together. Now that we've given it a minute, now we can come back in with more hot glue and we're gonna secure this to the base of the container. Now we'll give this a minute to harden up. Now we have this beautiful hanging geranium bush. So we're gonna start by taking the stem and just working it right into the styrofoam. Up next, we're gonna work in some delphinium. Now we have some of these pretty pink flowers. So these are just inexpensive filler bushes. And to bring out a little bit more pink, we're gonna use this ranunculus bush. So we're just gonna take this whole bush, find the perfect spot, and then we can separate the flowers.
Head to your local Dollar Tree and grab a candlestick, some small plastic plates, a styrofoam block, and some floral pieces. First, you'll want to attach the top of the plate to the candlestick. I just use simple hot glue for this. Then you're going to want to spray paint the piece to the color of your liking. Let it dry completely and then attach the styrofoam block to the finished paper plate. I use B7000 glue for this. Then remove all the stems from the floral pieces using wire cutters. You can then attach these floral pieces into the styrofoam block all around the plate.
Here I am at Dollar Tree. I'm going to start this project with a couple of grease splatter screens. Take the screen off. We have this little cone, so I'm just going to cut that. So this is just a Dollar Tree candle holder, and we have our piece of foam, and then we have the 2 metal rings. I want to cut Gorilla Clear Grip and hot glue because I want it to stay. You want the pretty side on the outside. A little mini glue stick cut in half gave it a little bit more support. Put down in there. And I'm just going to take and wrap that right around a generous amount of hot glue on the back of the acrylic gems. But I think I'd like to add a row of them down here also. I'm going to put hot glue right down on our mirror. And I have one of these small discs of foam like you can get at Dollar Tree, and I'm going to put that right down on there. I have all kinds of these pink Dollar Tree roses, and you're going to cut them off and then add a little dollop of hot glue, and we're just going to stick these right to the foam. I want to put our candle in there. I picked up 2 of these paper towel holders from the Dollar Tree. So I'm going to turn one upside down, and I am going to zip tie these together really tightly. So here we are, and I'm just going to cut these off. I'm going to paint my whole thing gold. I bought these 4" by 4" photo frames from the Dollar Tree that have gold glitter around them. And then I bought these mirrors that are 4" by 4". I am going to hot glue them. I'm going to take and glue these to one another and take out all of the little easels that hold up the picture frames. What I'm going to do is put my glue gun on low temperature, and I am going to stick this piece of styrofoam on top of this piece of styrofoam. We're going to take our paper towel holder that we have painted, and we're going to push that right down in there. I'm going to add a bead of hot glue, and then I'm going to secure it with some S-pins. I have some acrylic crystal drops and some very fine wire, and I'm going to feed some of these acrylic crystal drops onto my wire. And you're going to hang them right on the top part of your paper towel holders, and you're just going to twist that. I have almost a 7-inch craft foam. Slide it right over top. I'm going to add a bead of low temperature hot glue and some S-pins. I'm just going to take each individual little floret off of them using low temp glue. I'm going to add just a little bit of glue, and I'm going to start covering my styrofoam ball. And what I need to do now is decorate this bottom part right here.
Ran down to the dollar store and picked up some pool noodles. I cut them in half lengthwise. I made sure to cut the pool noodles to the length of the bench seat, and I secured it in place using a staple gun. At this point, I also added some fabric. I chose outdoor fabric because I knew that my bench was going outdoors. I secured this in place as closely as I could to the bottom of the pool noodle, put the fabric over that piece, and secured that piece again. And I continued this pattern of noodle, fabric, so that I could create tufted channels, and the fabric would look like it goes all the way down in between the different pool noodle pieces. When I got to the end of the bench, I again took that last piece of pool noodle, wrapped it around the back edge of the wood, and secured it in place. Now I needed to add the legs. I had ordered these legs off of Amazon. All I had to do was secure them in place using the screws that came in the box.
Today's project starts with a pool noodle. We're going to take a piece of duct tape and use that to hold it in place. Once we got our 3 rings together, we're going to stack them up. Once I get that, I'm going to cut some more pool noodles, and they're going to stack inside. We need them to be level with the top. Start on the outside and work your way to the end. Now you're going to start on one end and go ahead and slice your tape and put it on the bottom. Go across the 3 pool noodles, across the top, down the bottom. We're actually going to need to cover the whole thing in duct tape because we're going to need to apply some hot glue to it. And then right in the middle, I'm going to put a first dab of hot glue. I'm going to take this rope right here, this cotton rope, and go ahead and put it on there.
The next time you're at Dollar Tree, grab yourself some of their succulent picks. Also going to want to grab some of their foam pool noodles. I decided I wanted to paint my frame. Flip the frame over. I'm going to use the pool noodle as a measuring guide, and then I'm going to cut it exactly so it fits in the little ledge of the frame. And then I'm going to cut the pool noodle directly in half. I'm going to take some E6000 and I'm going to glue just the edges of the frame and the edges of the pool noodle, and I'm going to place the pool noodle into the frame, but making sure that the curved side is going to be facing out. Then once it's fully set, I'm going to come in here and create my own little backings. And then just to make the back a little prettier, I have this green fabric that I'm just going to lay over top, and then I'm going to take a stapler and I'm going to staple it around. I'm going to start with some moss. So I have some reindeer moss here. I'm going to come in with the succulent picks that I picked up from the dollar store, add a bit of hot glue to the edge, and then I'm going to work them in.
Gonna go right down the center and just cut them in half so that I have that flat edge to go flush against the board. Space the noodles out with a little bit of spacing in between, and then attach them also with the staple gun for some added stability. I worked in sections of about 4 at a time, sprayed a little bit of spray adhesive on, and then just kind of used my hands to firmly work the leather into the channels. I trimmed the edge at the corner and then just tucked it over and secured it tightly with a little bit of spray adhesive and then also more of the staples. Once that corner was secure, I just worked my way down.
Today we're working with pool noodles. First, you want to cut the pool noodle in half to slit them right down the center. And then we're going to fold our noodle open. So I'm going to cut this all the way through. And then I'm going to turn these upside down. So I'm going to put my glue. This is cool melt, so it's not super, super hot. And then you're going to place that. Okay, so now I'm attaching the second piece and we will insert our third piece. Okay, our glue is dry. So now I'm going to trim off the ends. We are now going to put a tray on here and we're going to decorate it.
Head over to your local Walmart and grab a few sprigs of greenery. I place the pool noodle next to the top of the planter and mark the lines. Then I cut the pool noodle with a knife to the mark. After that, I place the pool noodle pieces along with some empty water bottles inside the planter to keep everything in the center and weighted down. Then I place the sprigs of faux greenery inside the holes of the pool noodles and fluffed it all out.
Cut 2-inch sections of our pool noodle. We're going to have 1 in the center and 6 around the outside. And we're going to place it on the top. You want to cut all the way around. Cut that small piece out of my noodle. And then your candle will fit in there just like this. Now I'm going to connect them. I'm using a hot glue gun, but it is on a low temperature. I have a big rubber band in my hand, and I'm going to put that around here and let this dry.
So here's the big secret. Every pool noodle has a hole in it. So I'm gonna stick the pool noodle onto the faucet like this. Next, I take the other end of the pool noodle and I hold it down so that it aims in the center of the bucket. I turn the water on slowly and I just wait to fill the bucket to the level I want. Now, how easy is this? Now I'm ready to get mopping. Now, a lot of people have trouble with drafts coming in under doors. So the first thing I'm gonna do is take a pool noodle and I'm gonna measure my door. What I picked up was a pillowcase from the dollar store. I'm gonna take this pool noodle, stick it inside. I'm gonna lay it back down on the table so it's nice and flat. I'm gonna go ahead and just wind it. So I'm gonna put a little dab of hot glue here, and then I'm just gonna run this along the edge. So this end is open because this is the top of the pillowcase. So all I'm gonna do is stick the pillowcase into the hole. Velcro adhesive. So I'm gonna go ahead and peel off the adhesive and I'm gonna place it. Now I have peeled the backing off and I'm going to stick it to the door. Here it is on the door, and I can still open and close the door with ease. So what I've got here is a pool noodle from an old project that's already cut. And then what I need to do from here is just take a pen or a pencil or marker and just kind of mark where this spot is. I'm just gonna go ahead and make a slit into about half of the pool noodle. Next, I'm gonna flip the noodle over, and I've got these great little picture holder strips, and you're gonna wanna put it on the back side of where each of these are. So I start by peeling the backing off. And now I stick and press it on the wall, and I need to wait 30 seconds at minimum. I just open the pool noodle like so, and I stick my broom handle inside. Here they are all hung up, and I'm just absolutely thrilled with how easy this was and how it turned out.